Stranger Things Season 3 is back, and it reminds us one lesson that we forgot from the 80s. Better dead than red. In this season of Stranger Things, we finally get back closer to the beginning. So season 1 was really an homage to Stephen King and certain horror movies like The Thing. Season 2 was a little bit of a letdown, to be honest. Not that it was bad. It still had great writing. It still had great acting. But the crew wasn't really all together. You had Will getting taken over by giant mental spider thing. And Elle was off on her own almost the whole time with a nice Deus Ex Machina type ending where she comes back and just in the nick of time in order to close the rift that she opened years ago. Season 3 doesn't have nearly the amount of problems as Season 2. I'd say Season 3 isn't quite as scary and as horror-based as Season 1. Season 3 really reminds me a lot more of old Spielberg movies, except instead of beating the crap out of Nazis, it's all about communism, which in some ways is great. Even to the point where they have what looks like a low-rent Arnold Schwarzenegger clone, and he sort of plays a Terminator-ish type guy who just keeps getting up and keeps coming back to torment some of our main characters. So we may get into a little bit of spoiler territory, but I won't do too much. One of the best things about this season is everybody is here and everybody is participating. The only difference is Dustin. Dustin is sort of off on his own side quest for most of the time, dealing with Steve, his BFF from season 2. Steve used to be King Steve, the coolest dude in high school who could score all the time. Now he is stuck working at Scoops Ahoy, giving out free ice cream and suffering when multiple children want free samples. This actually works out kind of great. I sort of wish all 4 boys were together. Although if you really think about it, Will was gone for most of season 1, and he was sort of taken over by the alien entity for a lot of season 2. So what we really need is, I don't know, season 4. Could they all be together? One of the other nice things too is that you have Millie Bobby Brown's Elle, or 11 if you prefer. She's back and she's hanging out with Hopper, and she kind of seems to have a nice life. She's not stuck in the cabin like she was in season 2. She's out and about. She gets to hang out with Max a little bit. They have some girl time. One of the nice things about this movie is it really does remind you of the 80s. Not just in the look and the feel, but in the tone of the movies as well. This is, it's a horror movie, horror adventure, I guess you could say. But one of the really nice things is the character interaction. And in a lot of ways, this kind of reminds me of old movies like 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club. A lot of the drama, especially early on, revolves around the boys and trying to understand the girls. And then you also have same thing on the flip side. You have Max and Elle complaining about the boys, that boys always lie or boyfriends always lie. They both seem a little neglected. And this is all a result of, shall we say, over-amorous teenagers. There was a little subplot in season 1 with Nancy and Steve sleeping together and whether or not that makes her a quote-unquote slut. This doesn't get that far. I think it'd be a little creepy if we saw Mike and Elle doing it, or Lucas and Max are dating. If they were actually doing it, be a little creepy. If you remember that Arya scene from season 8 in Game of Thrones where she sleeps with Gendry, everyone was a little uncomfortable. It's kind of like, how old is she supposed to be? I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel about this anymore. One of the other nice things that really makes me remember the 80s is the mall. They have a little nod to malls coming into town and destroying local businesses, which did happen in a lot of places, absolutely. And it kind of reminds me of continued issues with this, especially people complaining about Walmart's moving in, and even more recently complaining about online companies like Amazon. But they really do a great tribute. It's very funny. If you were around in the 80s, you will recognize all your old favorite stores, with the exception of Scoops Ahoy, which I'm pretty sure they just made up for this show. Copyright issues would be my guess. But you had packed malls, which is exactly as I remember it. You have a wide variety of people who would just hang out there. You don't really see that very much in the U.S. anymore. Sure, there are places like Brazil and some other countries where the mall is a very safe, clean place to hang out. But it's kind of cliche and done here in the U.S. They upped the gore in season 3. There's a couple parts with, let's just say, bodies liquefying, which may or may not be human, and then just ooze going all over the place. They sort of ratcheted it up with that. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's something where the audience is getting a little older, so they sort of want to do it up, or if it's sort of a third season thing where you just sort of have to go bigger than you did before. But it's not too bad. I got my wife, who hates horror movies. She started watching somewhere, I think, episode 3. And by the end of the episode, she was hooked. And she's now... she binged season 1 yesterday and started on season 2. So maybe we'll finish it, a review of the whole thing again. But another great thing about season 3 is the complexity of the characters, because there are a lot of characters who are set up to be quote unquote bad guys who aren't necessarily bad. They may be a little selfish. They may go about things the wrong way, but they try to do things well, or they try to do the right thing, I guess you'd say. Once it becomes apparent what the right thing is. And even though they're sometimes just jerks, they don't often go about trying to hurt other people, mentally or physically. So, season 3, I would say it's a win. What episodes could you dip out of? I don't know. A lot of Netflix series, they're too long. Like all the Marvel series, like, my God, why do you need 13 episodes? Half the time we're just looking at people sitting on a couch talking. It's not right. The greatest thing about Stranger Things, 8 episodes. Yeah, we'd all like to see more, but we don't want them just sitting around and doing nothing. The script is tight. Every conversation makes sense to either clue you in on plot or character motivation. There's really nowhere that you'd want to skip. If you do, you're not really going to understand the end. The ending, definitely stick around, because they give you a clue as to what season 4 is going to be about. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be good or not. It might be getting a little long in the tooth. But at this point, I'm going to trust the Duffer Brothers. They've turned out 3 seasons of great entertainment. Season 3 is probably just a tad below season 1, but it's definitely worth watching. So thanks a lot for tuning in. I'd appreciate it if you could like, subscribe. Anything helps the channel. And what do you think of Stranger Things Season 3? I'd love to hear your comments down in the comments section. Thanks, guys. We'll be back with another video soon.